How did you come to realize that you were in approval seeking mode? Like, how did you know it the whole time, but you just didn't know what to do about it? Or you came to awareness with it and didn't know the tools? Like, what was going on inside you when you realized that these things within were off?
Well, I think it was the general state of anxiety I felt most of the time and the constant state of fear that I was being judged and that I would be judged harshly. And, so the energy, or I guess the fuel behind the need to be the people pleaser was the need to feel, the deep need is the need to be loved, the need to be accepted. But for me, what I have this vivid memory of is this constant state of hypervigilance, constantly on guard, constantly waiting for something to go wrong.
Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celinne Acosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in. Hello, soul family, and welcome back to the It's Not What You Think podcast. Today's a really, really special day. I have somebody who just means the world to me, Susan Winchester. Susan has been my client for 5 years, and I'm just so excited to drop in with her today and share her story of transformation because it is going to blow your socks off. This woman, it will become very apparent her brilliance, her skill, her hunger and desire for transformation, and what she actually accomplished with her life by implementing the work, by doing the personal work, by showing up for herself is gonna, yeah. Anyways, I'm super excited to have this conversation with Susan today. Susan is a former CHRO at a Fortune 150 company, and now is the founder of her own business, Healing at Work. So without further ado, Susan, welcome to the podcast. And would you mind to formally introduce yourself and share, who you are and why you're here?
Well, I am here because I have had the most amazing privilege and journey working with you, which it's shocking. It's 5.5 years that we've been working together. And you're right. When we met, I was the chief HR officer for a big tech company in Silicon Valley. And before that, I was the chief HR officer for another Fortune 500 company. And basically spent my entire career as a corporate HR executive. I always laugh that HR is my middle name because I really love the work. Very excited that I stepped away. I retired back in March of 2024. And again, with you, designed my life coming out of the, intense environment of working in a corporate world and really creating a business that I love. And, one of the major transformations that I had working with you was, I'd had a business alongside my corporate job, which my company was fully aware of, related to a book that I wrote. And it was more of a digital business, more of a digital model. And working with you in May of last year, when we did two VIP days in your beautiful home, Ibiza, Spain. It was terrible to have to go there, but really changing my entire approach to what I wanted to do post-corporate, which was basically to do some part-time consulting and executive coaching, working with clients that I really love. And after you and I did a really amazing breath meditation, I remember coming out of it and saying, God, bring leaders to me that I love working with. And within a week, 3 people called me and asked me to do work for them. And
Mm.
so it's been, over a year now with my own little business, working with amazing clients and just having a blast. So that's me in a nutshell.
You in a nutshell. I love it. Well, let's unpack that nutshell because there's a lot to what you've shared.
Oh my
So
God.
today's conversation is going to challenge you to think differently about success, fulfillment, and what's truly possible when you align with your soul's purpose. Because it's easy to talk about aligning to your soul's purpose and doing work from your soul's purpose. But what does that actually mean? What does that look like? What is going to be asked of you in order to create that alignment? And that is exactly what Susan's story is going to illuminate today. So, Susan, take us back to where you were 5.5 years ago before we started working together. What was your life like, and what was happening beneath the surface that others couldn't see?
Yeah, it seems like such a dark place. I'm just thinking about it. I had a wonderful career, so that's the first thing I'll say. I've worked with great companies, with great leaders, and I'm very, very blessed that I had such an amazing career. But for anybody working in the corporate world, we all know that it is an environment of intensity. It was regularly 12-hour days, often working on the weekends. In fact, not often, almost every weekend working. And the pressures on companies are incredibly intense, which of course, it's always an intense environment. There's always a lot of pressure for operating margins and revenue and cost efficiency and productivity, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a constantly intense environment. And what I didn't know until I met you was that for most of my career, 36 years, so I would say 30 of my 36 years, so basically, the 5 years I've been working with you, 30 of those years, my success was fueled by my underlying belief that I wasn't good enough.
Wow.
And I carried a lot of unconscious beliefs and unconscious patterns that were affecting me in ways that was I was oblivious to. I mean, I really thought that I had to go into work every single day. It was my job to prove myself over and over and over and over. And normally I'd go home after the day, I'd review the day and beat myself up about it. I shouldn't
Mm.
have done that. I should have said this in a meeting. Why didn't I speak up? Uh-oh, I'm pretty sure my boss is mad at me. And I would describe it as, and I obviously had some good moments. So I don't want you to think it was all like this, but sort of everything was wrapped around this. I mean, this wrapped around everything was this intense experience, never feeling like I had enough time,
Mm.
constantly feeling like I had more to do, and in this state of anxiety. I mean, I was living in a lot of anxiety. I don't know how else to explain it. Um, and thought I was doing well. I think we convince ourselves that we can handle it and that it's going to get better. But I can tell you that it just gets more and more intense. And I think everybody in their companies are trying to do the very best job they can. But I didn't realize how much my behavior, no, I didn't realize how much my beliefs about myself, my interpretations of other people, my response strategies to try to create a sense of safety and predictability, people pleasing and perfectionism, I was unaware of how much of a toll living my
Mm.
life that way was taking. And, I didn't become aware of many of these things that I'm talking with you about right now until I met you and worked with you. And I, I can't wait to share with people that there's an entirely different way you can live your life.
Mm.
And I wish that I had met you 25 years ago. I could have saved a lot of pain and suffering. And,
Mm.
I really do think back. And while again, there were good times and I worked with great people and had a lot of great challenges and experiences, I often went home and to take the edge off my sense of not being enough, I used Chardonnay to try to take the edge off the anxiety and the fear that what I was doing wasn't enough, or that I could get in trouble. If I get in trouble, I could lose my job. And all this was going on behind the scenes. Nobody had any idea this was all
Mm.
happening. So
Mm.
that's what I can, when you asked me a question about where was I 5.5 years ago,
Yeah.
I was super successful. Nobody would know how much this was going on for me behind me, the mask, I guess, is if you can imagine that. And yeah, and actually, my co-author Martha Finney and I had just finished writing a book, and I said I can't publish it. I can't publish it because I was really honest and authentic in the book about some of these struggles, and I was afraid to publish it because I thought I'd get judged. I thought I'd get judged by family members. I thought I'd get judged by my companies, and I had a lot of fear, and I was very lucky that Martha found. I think you had an ad for New Year's Day, one-on-one 90-minute story clarity intensive, which I had no idea what that was. I trusted Martha. We knew you'd work with some great leaders that we admire, and I signed up. And it was in that session where I started to have my eyes opened. And I remember very distinctly, and by the way, it took me 17 years to write that book. So it wasn't like I didn't have a lot of effort into it,
Hmm.
And I basically said, I'm not going to publish it. Nope. And I don't know what you did, because you're simply amazing the way you work with your clients, but you helped me get into a state of going deeper about why I'd written the book. And I know you did things to help me relax. I mean, I just remember feeling safe in the container that we were working in.
Mm.
And I had this vivid image of this meditation we did. And when I came out of it, what you helped me realize that my purpose for writing the book, my purpose, my why, was way bigger than my fear. And as soon as you helped me break through that, it was like I felt invincible,
Mhm.
And it was also during that session, this is an amazing 90-minute experience, that I came up with new concepts about my why that we ended up putting into the book. And the big why I was writing it was because I wanted to wake people up from their experiences in the corporate world. That I call it the unconscious wounded career path that came to me when you and I were working together.
Mhm.
That my why was, people don't have to live the way I lived for so many years,
Mm.
in a desperate attempt to get validated by everybody that they're looking to get validated by in the workplace, typically our bosses, our boss's boss, our colleagues. And that concept of being unconscious to how much our childhood experiences influence how we show up at work, the unconscious wounded career path where I lived for 30 of those 36 years, can actually be transformed into the conscious healing career path when we start to become aware of these past experiences and how they shape our entire work life, corporate career experience. And we built that all into the book coming out of that session with you. So that
Mhm.
was my first 90-minute session with you. It's like, wow, you talk about blowing my mind. I mean, I was really impressed that you did that so quickly, and
Mhm.
not only released me from the fear, because we did some strategies around how we'd handle some of the worst case scenarios I'd envisioned in my head, but equally as important, to being able to publish the book finally. My co-author was relieved because she was worried we weren't going to publish it. But then also coming up with these key concepts that I teach now in my work, whether it's executive coaching or consulting, that came from that 90-minute. And so, that was the beginning. That's where I was. I'm kind of rambling, but that I get excited thinking about it because it was incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this, Susan. And as you're speaking your words, especially when you're sharing about how stressed you were and the anxiety, and how from the outside looking in, you looked to be so successful, but from the inside, you weren't feeling that way. This story that you're sharing, I hear you, and behind your words, I see the stories of so many people,
Hmm.
people that I've worked with, colleagues of mine. I see myself in that story. And I'm sure that, as you know, those of you who are listening, have either know somebody who's been there, you've been there yourself, or you are there yourself right now. It is unfortunately a story as old as time. And which, brings us back to your why, which is that people don't need to live that way. And so, you were, when you and I started working together, you were at the pinnacle of corporate success by most external standards.
Hmm.
And so I'm curious about what made you realize something needed to change despite how it looked like from the outside.
Yeah, well, the one thing that was really clear for me was back in the early 2000s, I was in a personal leadership development seminar. And it was in that seminar that I discovered my purpose for my life, which is to teach
Mm,
self acceptance to create a more joyful world. And I remember distinctly the facilitator saying, if you're going to teach it, you have to be it.
mm,
And this concept of self acceptance was completely elusive. I was giving away all my power to everybody else to determine my value and worth. And it was because that's what I learned when I was little in relationship to my dad. I thought he held the power to determine my worthiness. And unconsciously, I brought that pattern into my experience in the workplace. And I think for me, there was a big disconnect between what I wanted to create, as far as what I think is a key part of why God brought me here, was to teach people how to have deeper levels of self acceptance. And I didn't have it myself. So, how am I going to possibly teach it? That was a huge disconnect. And I was just disconnected from even having any idea how to become more self-accepting, more self-compassionate, more self-caring, more self-care generally, because I was always in approval seeking mode, which is an exhausting way to live,
mm,
very dysfunctional way to live, a way of suffering, which I was living every single day. So I was hurting, and people didn't know that. I had become sober, at least. That was one thing. I'd been sober for several years, but there still is a big gap between what I thought about myself and how I felt
mm,
about myself.
Thank you so much for sharing. And, I'm curious about, well, I know the answer, but more for so for people who are listening and they're like, oh, I too am in approval seeking mode. How did you come to realize that you were in approval seeking mode? Like, how did you know it the whole time, but you just didn't know what to do about it? Or you came to awareness with it and didn't know the tools? Like, what was going on inside you when you realized that these things within were off?
Well, I think it was the general state of anxiety I felt most of the time, and
Mm,
the constant state of fear that I was being judged and that I would be judged harshly. And so the energy, or I guess the fuel behind the need to be the people pleaser, was the need to feel, you know, the deep need is the need to be loved, the need to
mm,
be accepted. And but for me, the what I have this vivid memory of is this constant state of hypervigilance, constantly on guard, constantly waiting for something to go wrong. And it's an agitated state to be in so many hours every single day. That's what I recall.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, there was a you mentioned, and this is something you've shared with me and we've gone through, you used to constantly feel like you were going to get in trouble. That was one of the
Oh,
patterns that we were able to untangle through our
absolutely.
work together. And so I'm curious if you could share, how did that work? How did that show up in your relationship at work? And what was the cost of carrying that fear?
Oh man. Well, the cost was heavy. The way it showed up was, I was a workaholic. That's one way it showed up, was constantly working, constantly trying to do everything I could to anticipate my key stakeholders' needs. Um, not sleeping a lot. I remember, a normal night for me would be 5 or 6 hours because I would be constantly thinking about what I could do to be even more effective. Workaholism, um, if my boss looked at me with a crossed eye, I'd always assume I'd done something wrong. It never dawned on me that maybe they're upset about something that I have no idea what's going on for that person. But I told myself all these stories that, made me, I don't know, sort of, I was at the, I was responding and reacting to other people and always trying to manage the other person's view of me so that they would not judge me or reject me or, lead to me doing something. And I remember if I did something where I thought I'd done something wrong, my whole system, you talk about fight, flight, or freeze, I'd go into total freeze mode. And my heart would be racing. I remember one time at one of the companies I worked in, I accidentally sent an email to somebody that I shouldn't have sent it to. And I was sure my boss was going to kill me. I was really upset.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, he handled it really well. Oh, it's okay. Whatever's meant to happen will happen. He was wonderful. But I remember thinking, I felt like I was going to die. I mean, I really felt, I get emotional thinking about it. The
Mm-hmm.
intensity of the emotion was all consuming. And then, if something like that happened, I'd go home at night and I'd ruminate about it for hours. Sometimes I'd ruminate about something that I thought I'd done wrong for days and sometimes even for weeks. And the feeling is almost feeling like I was stuck in a vice, like I was gripped with the fear of disappointing somebody or upsetting somebody. And, it's just constantly in a state of being upset that somebody else was going to be upset with me. Ah,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Like shake that off. Shake that off.
that
Yeah.
was my experience, though. And I was unaware of how much that reality was self created by me
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously. And that's a lot of the work that we've done together is really understanding the beliefs, the limiting beliefs, and the unhelpful patterns and habits that we take on when we think we need to do something to manage somebody else's view of ourselves.
Mm.
And, it's a gripping, phew, I can feel it through my chest. I can feel it on my shoulders. And that's how I lived for a long time, a long time.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's thank you for sharing that because, even again, when I hear you speak into this, I don't just hear Susan. I also hear so many people that are going through this and might not even be aware. And like you said, of the ways that they are unconsciously creating this for themselves.
Yeah.
And so, I'd love for you to share a bit more about what your experience was into realizing, because you had some really big realizations around, I'm doing this to myself. What did you learn? What did you discover? And how did that change the game for you?
Well, gosh, how much time do you have?
The short version.
I think been working 5 years. So what I remember and recall the work that you've done with me is you challenge me in loving, supportive ways, but in direct and valuable ways, how to be aware of how I talk to myself, the language that I'm using when I'm describing things that can be very reinforcing of the limiting behaviors and beliefs. Um, I know that, one of the, I guess, figures that I've had to manage through my whole career is authority, in particular, men in authority or masculine women in authority. And, that sensation of, I don't even know how to describe it, where I felt like everything I had to do was about trying to validate myself through their eyes. And, you know, angry authority people was also not great because had a fairly unpredictable, raging father who could be very scary, which I now know after writing Healing at Work with Martha, how much that past is influencing us every single day
Mm-hmm.
at work. But what you really helped me to look at is how much of what was going on inside of me and around me was really self story that I was telling myself. And what I didn't understand until I met you was that every single person that we interact with that upsets us or triggers us or whatever charges us up, whatever words you want to use, are actually a gift to us in that they represent some relationship that was unfinished for us in the past. And that when, in the past, I used to fear upsetting somebody because, again, I thought I was in trouble, that, I was going to be judged and all these different things. But working with you, one of the things that we did, and we did it through so many different methods. Some of it was the coaching that you provided. I love the VIP days with you because you do the amazing somatic work, the breath work, the meditation work. But was, breaking free of some of those chains that I had wrapped around myself, and that I was creating these stories about other people and how they viewed me that were completely based on my own creation, and oftentimes were completely wrong. The other thing I love that you taught me that I've shared also in my own coaching work, because it's so powerful, was knowing that whoever is creating the most worry, stress, anxiety, whatever in our work lives is simply an avatar. They're an innocent bystander. They don't realize you've looped them into your own story of your whole past, making them the evil villain. All they are is an avatar to help you work through the issues that you need to work on. And you have so many different techniques. It's hard for me even to articulate all the different ways you've helped me to understand some of these principles, and more importantly, then how to integrate them into my neural pathways. And recognizing that if somebody is causing me a lot of worry and anxiety, that they are, again, a gift, and they are my avatar to help me resolve something that I have left that's unresolved. I don't really feel like I'm doing a good enough job explaining this, but that was a big shift for me, was thinking, okay, good, I want someone to trigger me. That'll just give me another chance to work on myself.
Huge shift. Huge.
Well, it was a huge shift. I mean, it's not pleasant when someone seems upset or angry at you, but it was like I was making a mountain out of what was maybe a hill because of my own past experiences and unconscious beliefs. But realizing that they're just an innocent bystander that, we've looped into our life story, and we've made them the villain. And we're the ones that did that. Somebody may be upset about something and angry about something, but it may have nothing to do with me. But I always assumed it was about me. I always assumed I did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're speaking into, which is so potent, is this concept of radical self-responsibility. And what you're speaking also into in terms of making somebody the villain is the drama triangle, which is someone's a villain, someone is the hero, and someone is the victim. And when we are stuck in the drama triangle relationally, there's nothing we can do but continue to be in the trauma triangle. Someone's always going to be the bad guy, or we're going to be the victim, or we're going to be the bad guy, we're going to be the hero. And it's not until we can actually step out of the drama triangle, which is what you learned to do, can we really see the situation in the bigger scheme of things. And that's what allows us to evolve. And that's what allows us to grow. Because if we are like looping in this dynamic, then we're not able to grow. All we can do is repeat the patterns of the past, of our past conditioning. But when we are able to develop the skill set, which is what you did, to step out of the drama triangle, then we can look at things at a bird's eye view and be like, oh, interesting. How is this curriculum for my soul? How is this like school for my evolution? And how do I learn to not take this personally? And, sometimes innocent bystander, sometimes they're not so innocent.
True.
And again, that's their thing. That's their life. It's their journey. It's their story. But what we get to do in our position is we get to take radical self-responsibility for
Love
the
that.
way that we are creating our lives consciously and unconsciously. And when we're able to take radical responsibility, then we're able to direct the direction that our life takes, which is essentially the skill set that you have crafted and refined for yourself. And, speaking into the skill set, there's this moment that I remember when you first realized that your relationship with time was actually a trauma response. Can you
Mhm.
share a bit more about that revelation and how it changed everything for you?
Yeah, boy, I I always felt like I was running against the time, and there was never enough time. I never had enough time. I had this. I would say I detested time because it felt like it was never. It was, and I was always working all the time, so I didn't have time to do things that I found to be calming and relaxing and joyful. Um, and it felt like this little teeny spigot that was always, there was no room for anything else, and so it fueled my workaholism because I never felt like I could do enough at work. Of course, that was being fueled by all these, things we've been talking about. And I don't remember exactly when it was in our 5 years. I know we've spent a lot of time on time. But you've helped me in so many ways. So you have one of the things I love about you, Celine, is your resources that you have, either courses that you've created. Like I loved your Business by Soul course. I loved your Love Money Again course. There were so many courses that you offer. And then you also bring in other people that are experts, either in your courses or through books. And I'll never forget, you gave me a recommendation to listen to. Well, I like to listen to books, but also read 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burke. And he has a totally different approach to how to think about time, which is what you taught me, is being aware that time is, if you live to be 80, then you only have 4,000 weeks of your life. How do you want to spend those 4,000 weeks? And even on my little to-do list, I don't know if you can see it up here highlighted. I have it on every to-do list. 4,000 weeks, Susan. How do you want to spend that time? Do I want to spend that time ruminating about my not being good enough, or seeking somebody else's approval, or racing and spending all my time working? Or do I want to, and remember, this is another one of your lessons. How do I experience time in a way that it feels unlimited?
Mm.
Oh, it just makes me feel good thinking about it. And one of the techniques you taught me was really creating and focusing on creating moments and memories. And so I constantly am looking for moments and memories. I was outside yesterday doing my soul alignment practice, which you also taught me, where I was in nature and I was barefooted and really connecting with Mother Earth and God and my purpose, my highest purpose. And it was such a powerful moment because the birds were so funny because I was irritating them because I was in their space. But this beautiful blue sky, the birds, I hear the doves and the coolness of the grass. And it was literally 12 minutes, but it was such a slowing down of the
Mm.
experience because I was feeling everything, listening to your meditation, and feeling like time was completely unlimited. And the other thing that's really changed my view of time is that time's a man-made concept. And so time sometimes feels like a rushing river that it's running through our fingers. But then I started thinking about, like when I'm on the elliptical, time feels like forever, you know? And so I have the capability of slowing down, which has been one of the other key gifts that you've given me, is that when we slow down and we're not rushing all the time, which is what I did for so many years, time expands.
Mm.
And, I feel like my days now are so expanded in doing work I love, spending time with my friends and family, spending time with my animals, spending time taking care of my body. It feels expansive. And so it's been a complete shift in my relationship with time.
Mm.
And it just keeps getting better. Every time I do one of your meditations, it slows me down. And I think, this is what it feels like to have your nervous system calibrated.
Mm. Mm.
did not know that
Mm-hmm.
feeling before I met you. You know, I'll never forget that one session when you said to me very directly, Susan, you are addicted to anxiety. And I'm like, what? It was such a like, I felt like you slapped me in the face. I'm like, no, I'm not addicted to anxiety. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm addicted to anxiety. I love the adrenaline rush, the cortisol adrenaline cocktail, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, radical accountability and responsibility. I had to start to say, okay, yeah, you're right. I am addicted to anxiety, and I am responsible for shifting that if I don't want to continue to feel in this state of hypervigilance and worry and fear and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And, those patterns start to release. And you've taught me about time blocking. You've taught me about really staying focused on your zone of genius and finding other people to support you in areas that are not your zone of genius. Oh my gosh, the lessons are endless. I honestly, I feel like if we were to write up a book of all the things that you've helped work through, it would be like this thick.
Maybe we need to put that one
Yeah,
in the future.
but an
Beautiful.
amazing and ongoing journey for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. So, on that note, what was I know there's a lot, but if we were to condense it, what would you say was the most profound shift in how you see yourself that emerged through our work together?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I think, and it goes back to what I said when we first started talking. The biggest shift for me is I really own validation of myself. And while it's nice to get external validation, I recognize now that the only validation that matters is how I feel about myself. And so I think the
Mm.
biggest shift has been the deepening relationship with myself, feeling completely comfortable with me and all the flaws and complexities that every one of us carries, but not beat myself up all the time with
Mm.
a stick over my head, blaming myself for other people's emotions. That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge because you get to have that with you for the rest of your life.
Well,
Yeah.
in realizing that whatever the other person is doing is not about me, it's about them. I have to be accountable for what I'm doing. But if somebody else is
Hmm.
upset with me, then that's about them.
Hmm.
And I can
Hmm.
detach from that hook. I had a lot of what you call those energetic hooks, hooking into the same kind of personality over and over and never resolving it and being stuck.
Hmm. Hmm.
And breaking free of that, whew, that was a big one.
Wow. Liberating. Absolute liberation. I love it.
It
So,
is.
Susan, you've completely since we started our work together, you've completely reimagined your relationship with work. So, can you walk us through how you transitioned from working 60 plus hours a week, workaholic all the time, to 10 to 15 hours while actually increasing your impact and financial abundance?
Yeah. So, again, you and I together in Spain on that beautiful island where you
Mhm.
live, uh, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life post the corporate world. And I'd had an LLC business for my book and the courses that I had built and my keynotes and everything else. But that business felt heavy to me. I felt, I had good people helping me with it, but as you know, taking radical accountability for myself, I'd abdicated my role as the leader of that LLC for years because I was so consumed with my corporate job, which was right. But I basically was giving everybody else the power to do whatever needed to be done. And they were doing good things, but the whole structure of it just felt heavy. I didn't like the social media part of it. I didn't like the infrastructure I had around it. It felt heavy. And so in that meditation that you helped me do, I just remember having this visual image of going down a path and then coming to a fork in the road.
Mm.
And if I went one way, it was to continue to build the digital business that I had put in place. or to completely turn back and go the other way, which was to just do the work that I love to do, which is HR consulting and executive coaching, and to do it with people I really enjoy working with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this freeing clarity of soul alignment, of it was just a moment of clarity. I don't know how else to explain it. And it's just been so much fun. Like I said, God brought three former leaders to me, all doing really fun work that are core pillars of my consulting work. And I'm continuing to work with several. I have other ones coming in periodically, but I get to choose the work that I do. Like you said, I have like Tuesday mornings, Thursday mornings, Saturdays and Sundays. I am horseback riding. I am out at the stable with my friends riding my horses. Those days are blocked for the most part, not all the time if there's something I need to do, but pretty much that's what I do. And then finding great people to help me in areas that are not my zone of genius, which I have been able to do as well. So that was, your program, the Soul Business by Soul, was really powerful.
Mm.
And then doing the one-on-one work with you to really integrate the concepts into a lot of clarity about what is my soul purpose, and talking about, I remember in our session in Spain, getting a lot of clarity about my personal and professional principles, and then designing my life around those principles. And it feels really good. I just love it. I tell everybody, they always say, well, how's retirement? I'm living the most blessed life you could imagine. I love it. And to your point, I mean, I'm the revenue's amazing, but the thing that's most amazing is working with people I really care about, helping them solve problems that they need help solving that I know I'm good at. And it's extremely rewarding and fun and energizing. It does not feel like work at all. I do not feel like I work.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And what I love about your share is that crossroads in the road. And this is, speaking into something that I've witnessed and supported so many people through, which is that crossroads of where do I want to go? And what I realized and seen is that, when we're unconscious to the ways that we are consciously, that we are creating our lives, we get very caught up in what we should be doing, or what like the shoulds, right? Or we look outside of us to our colleagues or people who are doing similar work to as us, and think, oh, they're doing this and they're succeeding, therefore I need to be doing this so that I can succeed. And there is this collective story that gets created in the professional world, um, where we think we need to be a certain thing. But the reason why we think that is because we're seeing reality through the lens of our own limiting belief systems and
Mm-hmm.
our own past life conditioning, and everything that you've shared, like the lack of self-validation or not believing in ourselves. Those are all, the stories as old as time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about your share, and what the work that we did, because it's very tempting coming out of corporate to go and recreate the same reality that you
Yeah.
were in. So to kind of like rebuild the same cage, but golden, because now you're your own boss. But what was really important was breaking through those patterns around, I'm going to get in trouble, your relationship to time, your relationship with your self-worth, and the validation, all of that. You needed to break through that so that you could be at that crossroads and have clear vision, instead
Mm-hmm.
of being clouded by those belief systems and the fears and things like that. You could have clear vision. And that's what it really takes when we're talking about soul aligned work, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to see with crystal clarity, is to be able to, number one, know that your validation, your worth is inside of you. It's not outside, it's not external, it's not outside in, it's inside out. To
Right.
know that you do have time and you do get to create the life that you want, that you are responsible, and everything that you've shared up until this point. And from that space, you were able to actually look at the path and see, this is my soul aligned path. This is what brings me joy. And so, I'd love to hear from you. One of the things that I talk a lot about my work, and a concept that you're all too familiar with, is living from soul, which is also, my Substack membership. It's something that I literally created a membership around it because I'm so passionate about not just talking about it, but showcasing what this actually looks like. So what does living from soul mean to you now? And how different does it feel in your body compared to your former way of living?
Well, completely different. Living by soul is really getting clear about what matters most. And then, for me, it's my health, it's my family, it's finding time for joy. It's really being clear on what matters most, and then creating space for those things. So like I think about life before living life by soul. There was no time or room for any of that. And I was on, sort of I hate that explanation or the description, a rat race, but it was like you're running on the hamster wheel every single day. You're exhausted when you get home. There's no time to create the space to do all the things that you love to do. And it's also living life by soul is that connection with whatever you want to call it, universe, God, source, Gaia, Earth. It's all these things that are bigger than us, and making a daily practice, which, as you know, I'm working on. I'm getting better at it, but the daily practice of connecting into that source and seeking guidance and clarity about what is my highest purpose. What do I need to know and what do I need to do next? Which is, of course, part of your meditation. And so I have a much more, I've always had a great connection with God. I talk to God regularly, but I wasn't ever really listening to God until working with you and some of the work that we've been doing. So now finding space to listen and trust that whatever is the intuitive feeling that I'm getting, to trust that and to know that that's God's path for me. But it's a complete reprioritization of how I spend my life and how I spend my time. And there's certainly a professional component of it because I do love the work that I do. I love the clients I'm working with. But it's all about joy. It's about attracting people that are going to appreciate and value and partner with me on solving some of their challenges. So there's a daily connection to God, constant gratitude. The more you appreciate, the more it appreciates. I just heard that I can't remember. I've listened to too many books recently. But it is creating the space and prioritizing what matters first. And for most of my career, I never prioritized those things. I always prioritized the work that I was doing for the company I was working for. Always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's really beautiful because something I've experienced, and I know you have as well, is that when we begin to align our lives to soul, and by that I mean our essence, like what brings us joy, what brings us bliss, what brings us gratitude, and we begin to prioritize our life that way, the greatest irony of all is that there's more time. And like you were saying, time slows down when you're in your zone of genius, when you're just in full flow, doing the work that you love with the people that you love. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. And so the greatest irony is that when we prioritize and reshift, shuffle and restructure our lives in accordance to what brings us that joy and to accordance to what brings us freedom and expansion, in our nervous system, then we actually have more time and more energy and more capacity to do things. And so we get more done in less time. So, there's something that you said to me a few weeks ago, and I'll leave it to you to share it in the way that you said it, because it really took my breath away. And something you had shared, even when I had invited you to do this case study, is you said, Celine, one of the biggest changes that happened in my life is that I felt like I used to just live in constant suffering. And now I feel like my life is constant joy. And so if we look at your life now, from your daily routine to your business model to your relationships, can you share more about that comment that you made, and what's the change that brought you the most joy and freedom?
Well, as I said before, my daily practice before working with you was to go in and, this constant sense of needing to prove myself, which led to workaholism. It led to alcoholism, using alcohol to self-numb and self-regulate my nervous system because I didn't know how to do that until I met you. And the way I described the unconscious wounded career path is like a spiral every single day into a pit of painful emotion. And that's the state of suffering. That's that being worried, being fearful, being anxious, being afraid, feeling judged, feeling rejected. It's all those emotions. And I know there's no good or bad emotions, but they were definitely painful emotions for me anyway. That was my regular routine for really until you and I met. So 30 plus years of my 36-year career. And I don't know, it's the culmination of all the things that you and I have done together that have led to living a completely different life by soul, to stepping into the clarity of knowing that I'm responsible and accountable for the experience I'm having here. And, one of the areas that we've also been working on, which we haven't talked about, is that shift from human doing to human being. And also when I start to do that, I realize that time does expand. When I'm a human doing, seeking approval and validation from everybody else, I'm exhausted, I'm overworked, I'm tired, I'm cranky. And when I'm living my life based on prioritizing the things that I know give me energy and joy, honestly, it's glorious. And so rather than that painful spiral into the suffering emotions, it's a spiraling up the conscious healing career path. It's a spiraling up to energized, joyful, excited, in service. And it's just, I just sometimes feel like I'm going to burst because it's so good. And people are always surprised when they say, well, how are you? I'm fabulous. I've never been better. Because people are used to hearing about everybody's painful experiences. And I certainly was part of that crowd for a long time. And it's very hard for me to point to I guess the one thing I'd point to is working with you. It has been an absolute blessing. And, how much I look forward to our coaching sessions and our VIP day sessions and our time together. Because every time I'm learning from you, lessons are becoming more deeply integrated. You have lots of practices for helping us to understand how to integrate these new ways of thinking, believing, and behaving into our neural pathways, which I love. I love how you bring in NLP, the neuro linguistic programming, the neuroplasticity research around the ability to shape and change how we think and behave, as well as all the practices, because you're always out in the world learning from masters to bring that to your clients. And I just feel it's like supercharged thanks to the partnership that we've had together and continue to have together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I want to dive into a little bit, your work where you help others through your healing at work methodology, which you've done your book about, you've built your business around. How has your own healing journey informed the way that you guide others?
Well, it's a big part of it. I'm very proud of our book, Healing at Work, where I basically teach people how to use the workplace as a laboratory for emotional healing, especially those times when we get really upset or emotionally charged up and triggered. And so I definitely bring in the concepts and the principles and the lessons into my executive coaching. And then, of course, I love, in fact, I'm going this week to North Carolina to do another keynote based on the book for a very large association. And I just feel such honored to be able to share the keynote all over the world. And then, of course, a leader's workshop that I built around it, courses, etc. And so it's a key component of the executive coaching work that I do. I can also bring it into some of the consulting work I'm doing as well. And it's very aligned to my purpose, which is teaching others how to find their own levels of self-acceptance using,
Mm.
my history and experience
Mm-hmm.
of what
Mm-hmm.
it's not, what it doesn't feel good, and then shifting into, and again, you've taught me so many things, so many different practices to help people self-regulate through sound, breath, and movement. And yeah, it's a key pillar of my consulting model and executive coaching model for sure.
Hmm. It's so incredible to me again and again. I've been doing this work for almost a decade now, and I just keep falling in love with it, as I know you have the same experience with healing at work for you, because I just continue to witness the ways that our story, when we decide to alchemize it, when we decide to take full ownership of our
Mm-hmm.
past, of our life, for you, the last 30 plus 36 years of your career, you took that. And despite your suffering, despite the anxiety, despite all the pain that is in that, and the workaholism and the alcoholism and everything, you were able to transmute it and to turn it into curriculum that other people can learn from, with all of your lessons and all of your wisdom infused in it. And people now can go through your process, your methodology, and actually be able to, even when you said to me, I wish I met you 25 years ago. Well, you can be that person for someone else now through your body of work that you've developed and through your embodiment of the work that you've done. And this is what's so precious and why I'm so passionate about this, story healing work, is that when we go into the depths of our story and we're actually able to unpack it and heal it, and learn the skills and the tools as you've done to transmute it, what it becomes is a body of work that is deeply aligned to your soul purpose. And it's
Right.
something that you can teach over and over and over again to support other people from repeating your mistakes, and can help people not need to spend 30 plus years, but rather collapse those timelines into something much more digestible and doable.
Yep.
It's why I do the work I do. It's why, the work that you do. And even for people who are like, yeah, but I'm not, I have a sock company, or like I sell water bottles. What does this have to do with my brand? It's got everything to do with it, because regardless of whether you're selling your personal brand, or you're selling, something that is directly associated to you, everything you do carries the consciousness that you do it. And so the
Mhm.
brand and the whatever it is that you are putting out into the world is going to carry your mark of consciousness on it.
Right.
And when we're integrated, and when we are taking that radical self-responsibility, and when we're able to really own our story, the story of our past, that liberates so much time, space, and energy to be present in the now moment, as what you're describing when you're doing your meditation now, just having these moments of deep, I'm here right now in this moment. So it
Mm-hmm.
liberates all this life force energy to be present now. And it also liberates life force energy for us to be active participant in our co-creation of life with God. And what I mean
Right.
by that is we can start to design the story of our future and bring it into the now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, soul family. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far and feeling all the good vibes. Before we dive back in, I want to take a moment to share a special gift with you, something that is near and dear to my heart that can truly help elevate how you start and flow throughout your day. If you've been craving a deeper alignment with yourself, with your soul, your body, your mind, your energy, then I invite you to experience my Soul Alignment Meditation, a free daily practice designed to help you come back home to yourself, to your power, and to your center. In this brief but powerful meditation, you'll learn how to sync your physical, emotional, mental, and energy bodies, offering yourself the gift of soul deep relaxation and clarity. Whether you're feeling a little off center or simply want to lead your day from a place of grounded alignment, this practice is for you. So, if you're ready to move through your day with more ease, purpose, and connection to your truth, you can access the Soul Alignment Meditation by going to the show notes or visiting CelineDacosta.com/Soul Alignment Meditation. It's completely free and designed for anyone who's ready to lead their life from the heart and soul. I can't wait for you to experience this. Now, let's get back into today's episode.
Hmm.
So, for somebody who, I'm curious, Susan, what would you say to somebody who's listening right now, who's either in that corporate environment, so they're in corporate and they've been in a similar situation for you, as you, um, or somebody, who's built a business that is successful on the outside looking in, but they're feeling, that's that feeling of, I feel successful on paper, but I'm feeling empty, misaligned, just crunchy inside, and thinking, I can't possibly change this. What would you say to someone?
What I would say is that it can be changed. I'm an example of how much it's changed for me based on what I've shared today. And you said something that I really liked, which is one of the reasons why I like working with you is because you have all kinds of tools, methodologies, concepts, lessons, practices that accelerate an individual's capability to make that transformation. I mean, I feel like a completely different person than I was 5 years ago in my relationship with other people, my relationship with myself, and my relationship with my life generally. And so I think what I would say is that came about because of everything that you brought into the relationship. And what I love about you is that you're constantly seeking more knowledge about how to help the people, your clients, how to help them with that transition, that transformation from the state of suffering to the state of joy. And I mean, I just feel like this whole suite of tools that I'm surrounded by, not only for me, but then I can share with the people that I'm coaching and working with. And it's like an acceleration plan. I don't know how else to explain it, but you know, I think that's what it is finding an expert, a master expert who's on her own learning journey of exploring and learning from some of the best teachers in the world, and then bringing that knowledge and packaging it in a way that it resonates. And then it is through everything that you do is it's getting integrated all the time. Integrate. And that is the journey. There were a lot of hard moments, that. But oh my gosh, is it worth it? I feel like I was swimming in the ocean for a while and then kind of was up on the shore exhausted, luckily didn't drown. And now just feeling so full of energy and excited about every single day. I get up every morning at 6 a.m. because I don't want to miss anything.
Uh,
That's my choice. I don't have to get up at 6 a.m., but I like to get up and get going because I want to enjoy every single minute of every single day.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I love 6 a.m. 6 a.m. You crack me up. We know that I'm not a morning person, but I also like to enjoy, but that's the point, right? Life by design. You wake up
Yeah.
at 6. I don't wake up at 6. And we still are creating it. Time is endless. And we get to shape it and move it the way that we desire, the way that feels from our soul.
Yep.
So, Susan, looking back, what was the biggest misconception that you had about transformation that you now know isn't true?
My biggest misperception was that it would never change.
Mm,
I didn't think it was possible. I thought I was always going to be in that same state, and I didn't really realize how bad that state was because I was so outside my body and soul. I don't know how to explain it. It was just, running all the time, proving, trying to exceed people's expectations. I remember I had this belief that my job was to make every single person that I worked with feel like they were the only person that mattered, and that I was going to go above and beyond for every single person. I was always giving, and it served me incredibly well. I mean, I am not complaining about how well I was treated as an executive in my companies, but that is an exhaustive way to live your life. And I never thought it was possible to change because I was totally unconscious of all. I was like oblivious. I had blinders on. I just thought that's how it would be. And unfortunately, I hear that from a lot of people. It's just the way it's going to be until they someday, retire, but some of these people are going to work 20 more years. I think it doesn't have to be like that. You can have a completely different experience. I wish that I had known you so much earlier in my career, because I wouldn't have had all that pain and suffering that I did. And I just thought it was part of the gig. It's just part of the deal.
Mm.
And, one of the things we've talked about, it's, you know, it's true, is it was the money, it was the recognition, it was the awards, it was all of that. And, um, it's addictive, right? Anybody that's worked in the corporate world know it's an addictive experience to get all that when you're good at what you do. But there's a huge cost. And my cost, which is one of the other reasons why I wrote the book, was the recognition, and it's going to get me all choked up, that I was so consumed with getting external validation at work that when I wasn't at work, I was thinking about work or worried about work, to the point where I neglected my own sons when they were growing up.
Mm.
And I can't go back. I can't go back to those days when they were little. And I put a lot of responsibility on my oldest son, who took, a lot of responsibility taking care of his brother. And I don't wish that for anybody. I wish I could go back. I wish that I had learned these things a lot sooner. So, I forgot your question. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah. Your biggest misconception you had about transformation that you
It would
now know
never
isn't
change.
true.
I didn't believe it would ever change until I retired someday.
Wow.
But you and I worked together for the last 5.5 years of my corporate career, and I experienced those last 5.5 years very differently than I experienced the first 30, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just never thought it could be different. That was my
Yeah.
biggest misconception.
Wow. This is such a, thank you so much for sharing about, this is such a powerful story of just redemption and self-awareness. And, I know, I know so many people, they've been my clients, and I also know them just from colleagues and, friends of friends and whatnot. Um, yeah, like what you said, who were not able to show up for their children and were not able to show up for their partners. They were not able to be present, um, because of these patterns, and because they just didn't know, right? Like, it's like you said, it was this oblivion. You don't know until you don't know. And then when you wake up, you can't unsee it.
Right.
And just the regrets that come from there, and the grief that comes from there. And but at the same time, what I hope that people can hear from your share is that, from what I know of you, you have now gone above and beyond to make that right. There's still, I am of the believer, I'm a believer that there's always going to be time. As long as we wake up to our past and we wake up to what was done, we can't change the past, but we can change how we show up now. And I know that you have, gone above and beyond to realign with your sons and to make your
Sure.
relationship right. And there's some really, really exciting things that also involve them coming up on the horizon, which brings me to the next question, which is, Susan, what is next for you on this journey? We've been talking about the last 5.5 years, but I'm curious about, what are you currently expanding into, dreaming about? What's in coming up for you in this year and the coming years? Would you be able to share more about that?
Sure. Yes. So one thing that's coming up, which I'm super excited about, is my oldest son, Joe, really wants to be a part of the work that I do in my business around healing at work. That's one of the pillars of my consulting practice. And so, just on a part-time basis, he is going to start working with me, relative to how my business runs in terms of the system and operations of it. And he's super excited. And it also is me stepping into, how do I make sure I leave a legacy with healing at work, and bringing my son in to help me with the business will enable him to continue to bring it into the universe and the world. So that's super exciting. And I'm also excited that my youngest son, Sam, is going to be experiencing one of your 90-minute one-on-one intensives, basically coaching. I love it that, and I said this to him. I said, I wish somebody had done this for me when I was starting my career. He's starting his career, so he's going to work with Celinne, just like I did 5.5 years ago, to find ways that he can, like all of us, break through whatever is keeping us from the greatest joy that we could have.
Mm.
Um, and so what's unfolding is this continued experience of working with amazing clients and executive coaching clients, and it just keeps flowing. And I find so much joy working with people who want to do meaningful, substantive work, that it just I'm super excited. I just love that. And so it's I don't want to do too much, because I want to make sure I got lots of time for all the things I also love to do. But learning how to, first of all, thanks to you, really have a very different relationship with AI than I've had in the past. And learning, and this, you and I did a lot of work together in Austin a couple of weeks ago in our last VIP 2-day session, is understanding how to transform my own business, leveraging the brilliance and emergent intelligence that's available through the relationship with AI. And it's exciting. I mean, I'm just really having a lot of fun learning that journey as a beginner, but really learning how to leverage that. I love it. It's so much fun. So those are some of the things I'm working on and
Yeah.
continuing to do.
What I love about your share is, and even bringing on Joe to be part of the brand, and this is legacy. When people talk about, I want to leave a legacy behind, right? And again, I'm such a lover of clarity. And instead of saying things, just throwing them around like, oh, I want to live in my soul purpose, or I want to live from my soul. I want to have a legacy. I want to be in joy, right? And these are all things that, yes, we want, but what does it actually mean in practice? And what I
Mm-hmm.
really love about your story is that you're literally showcasing it. Practically speaking, this is what it looks like. You've gone through this entire journey and you've created healing at work with all its methodologies and tools that now you're sharing, in both your executive coaching work. You're doing keynotes in some huge brands around the world that are
Mm-hmm.
flying you over for you to teach your work. And in addition to you having, doing this work for you for your lifetime, now you get to pass this on to your son. And
Yeah.
this work gets to live beyond just Susan
Yep.
for who knows how long, who knows how big this will be, even beyond your 4,000 weeks. And that's what I love about your story. Like, it gives me chills even when I talk about it. It's just that we don't even know, at to date of this conversation, we have no idea the ripple effects that your legacy with healing at work and everything you've lived and will continue to do so in your beautiful life, we have no idea what the ripple effects are. And what's really beautiful is that we don't have to know, because it's just going to keep on keeping on through
Mm-hmm.
you, through Joe, through whatever it is that you're creating in the years to come. But what matters is that here and now, you're happy and you're
Yeah.
aligned and you're living from soul and you love what you do, right? And that is the biggest magic of everything that you're sharing. It's just this: I am creating from a state of bliss, and I am creating my legacy from joy and freedom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And who the freak knows? Like, only God knows what that legacy is actually going to do and how many people it's going to impact and lives it's going to change. And even that, it doesn't matter, because today you feel like this, and that is the most important thing of all. And so, as we wrap up today's conversation, I'm curious, Susan, what is one truth you know now for certain that you wish you could whisper to your former self 5 years ago?
You don't have to live this way. There is a completely different path available to you. All you need to do is step onto it. I
Hmm.
wish that I had known that so many years ago.
Hmm.
The truth is, I mean, there's so many truths. It's just even hard to pick one. The truth is, there is a different way to experience your life than how you're experiencing it today. There is a way of living your life from complete joy, even if you're working full time. That is my last several years, as you know, working at my last company. I had so many moments of joy, and you know, and a lot of it was just the process of learning more about myself and how I react to other people and how I show up and how I tell myself stories that are actually not true. It was such a gift to be able to experience my corporate um, life in completely new ways. So the biggest truth is that it's possible for anybody. It's not, I'm not special. I just was tired of the pain. And luckily, Martha found you. You know? Thank you, Martha. Yeah, yeah, that's the truth. The truth is, it is possible to have a very different life experience, one full of joy and calm and um, meaningful work that doesn't have to suck the joy out of you.
Hmm. It's a beautiful full circle moment as I hear you speak and share your story, because, as you know, one of the core things that I teach people when they first come on working with me is what is your why? What is your deepest why? The one that gives you goosebumps, the one that takes your breath away because it is so real to you. And of course, as you also know, um, I'm a practitioner of my own work and my own
Mm-hmm.
practices. And as you even know, when I recently took my 3 month sabbatical, whenever I feel myself misaligning with the very principles that I teach, I will literally take time off and I will go back into my cave and I will only emerge when I'm realigned. And when it comes to my why, it's it has always, since I first cracked into this methodology, it's been around learning what it truly means to be human, and specifically is what does it mean to live as a human in love, joy, and freedom. And to me, when we talk about, the emotional cocktail, that's my emotional cocktail that I endeavor to embody every day. It's love, joy, and freedom. Those are
I love
the
it.
core emotions that
Mm-hmm.
I live by. And whenever I'm
Mm.
misaligned, my true north is love, joy, and freedom. Am I in love? Am I in joy? Am I in freedom? And if the answer is no, then the work, the tools, the methodologies are to steer the ship back into that alignment. And what
I
I
love it.
love about your story is what I'm hearing is
Mm.
you walking your path in love, joy, and freedom. And to
Yep.
me, the deepest form of alignment professionally in the work that I do, work/play that I get to do in my lifetime, is seeing somebody that I've had the honor of working with, such as yourself, share an authentic story from your heart of the journey that you've taken and being like, oh my God, she's she's literally in alignment with my why. That's why I show up and do what I do. Like, that makes sense, right?
It does.
And
It
it's
makes a
like,
ton.
that's why I put, like you said, that's why I put my hand up and go travel to the masters and put in those hours and take the time off and do the thing. And sometimes when I'm like in my own dark depths of the soul and I'm like, oh God, why am I like doing this to myself? Why am I, flying across the world to meet with this teacher and spending all of this money or doing all these things and taking time off? And like, why am I doing this? Right. And then when I come back in and I see someone like you and I see you in front of me, I was like, oh,
Oh, that's
that's
why.
why. That's
Yeah.
why, you know? And it is
Yep.
such a deep, it's living from soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
business by soul. It's funny. It's all
It
my
is.
program names, right? Living from soul, the
Yeah.
membership, business by soul, the course. But like, this is it. It is deep, 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 deep alignment. So, as
Yeah.
we begin to complete our conversation for today, Susan, I'm curious if there's anything else that you feel inspired to share with whoever's listening in terms of doing this work and showing up and doing this, or anything that just comes through as a transmission.
Oh gosh. Um, I love the joy, love, and freedom. And I think so many people are seeking that in their own lives. And my message is, if you're willing to show up, the teacher is there. the guide is there that can accelerate your life experience of love, joy, and freedom. And why wouldn't you take that? I mean, I cannot say enough about this journey and the lessons that I've learned, and sharing those lessons now with the people that I have the privilege of coaching, that there's just a completely different way that you can experience your life and your career that's available to you. And all you have to do is step up and show up. And I've just marveled at how this work has exploded my own experience of my life. Yeah, it's it's amazing. I'm very, very, very blessed that God brought you into my life, and that I've had the privilege of learning from you and studying with you and crying with you. It's been a full circle journey on my own set of issues, but it is possible, and it is possible for every single person that's listening.
Thank you. And thank you, Susan, for your courage. Because, and I appreciate your words in terms of working with me, but know that working with you has also transformed me. And
Oh,
it's to see you take these principles and run with them and show up and just face yourself and make it hard. Like, you have inspired me so many times. And there's so many times in my work where I'm so deeply inspired by my clients' courage and determination that it gives me the food I need for me to do the courageous thing. And
yeah.
so, even for whoever's listening, don't underestimate how you showing up for yourself, for you doing this work, even when you have a mentor, you have a guide, a Sherpa, whatever, it's like you inspire those that support you as well. And so even one of the things, the last things I want to share here is that this is not about having any kind of hierarchical dynamic with someone else in your life who's supporting, but rather
Right.
understanding is that we all need a little help sometimes. And we all have our own unique set of gifts and talents that we bring to the table. And when we get to shine in our soul gifts and talents and our purpose, then other people like, Susan here, like, gets to benefit. But also don't underestimate that as Susan shines in her gift and purpose, I benefit too. I receive from that as well. And so the beautiful thing around us giving our gifts to the world is that we give our gifts and we support the people who receive our gifts. And in supporting the people who receive our gifts and them stepping in their power and shining their light, we benefit from that too. It's a two-way street. And so know that, as I've supported you in your journey, you being my client supported me in my journey. And it's a feedback loop that allows us each to shine in our own respective gifts and power. And that's really, it feels really important to remind people of that, that when you show up and you have the courage and you transform and you do the hard thing, then you inspire those who support you and those that you help. It is just a whole feedback loop of just positive empowerment and all the good stuff.
I love it. Well, listening to you talk, I feel like sometimes I wasn't the easiest client. So you were always searching for ways to teach me how to integrate the concepts.
It keeps
So
me
you
nimble, it keeps me
kept you on
sharp,
your
and it keeps me on my toes. So it is absolutely perfect because it has
toes.
only increased and sharpened my skill set to do what I do.
Aw, thank you. Well, it's so much fun to be back on the podcast and start
Yeah,
talking about this
totally, totally.
full
So,
circle.
so Susan, this is all going to be in the show notes, but can you share with us, how do we find you?
Sure, easy. My LinkedIn, Susan. I don't even know what my name is on LinkedIn. Susan Winchester, Susan Jean Schmidt Winchester, and then my website is susanwinchester.com. HTTPS //susanwinchester.com. And I also have a website for healingatwork.com also.
Beautiful. All of that will be linked. Thank you
Perfect.
so much for being here and sharing your powerful story. And for, those of you who are listening, thank you so much for showing up. And my sincere desire is that when you're listening to these episodes, it awakens something in you. It reminds you of what you are capable of in your life and your story. And so, if there's anything that inspired you from today, don't be shy. Share about it. Take a screenshot of this episode. Write your comments. Reach out to me and/or Susan. Tag us on social media. We would love to hear what you received from this. So, thank you, Susan, and I will see you very soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Great pleasure and honor to be a part of your show.
All right. See you all on the next one. Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning into today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celinne DaCosta, or visiting my website at CelinneDaCosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.